Before written history became organized and recorded, entire societies rose from the earth, shaped landscapes, built cities, and formed complex ways of life. They were not minor settlements or temporary communities, but civilizations that once thrived with structure, purpose, and identity. Today, many of them are gone, leaving behind fragments that raise more questions than answers. Welcome to today's story. When we think of history, we often imagine a clear timeline where one civilization replaces another in a neat and logical sequence. But reality is far less orderly. Across different continents and eras, there are cultures that appear suddenly in the archaeological record, flourish for generations, and then vanish with no clear explanation. Their disappearance was not always dramatic or recorded. In many cases, it was quiet, gradual, and undocumented. What makes these lost civilizations so intriguing is not only that they disappeared, but that they left behind evidence of sophistication. Stone cities aligned with the stars, intricate road systems carved into challenging terrain, and social structures that required cooperation on a massive scale. These achievements suggest knowledge and organization that we are still trying to fully understand. Yet history offers no single answer to where these people went or why their societies ended. Written records, if they ever existed, have been lost to time. Oral traditions faded, and later cultures built over what remained. What survives today are ruins, tools, and symbols, silent witnesses to lives once lived in full. As we begin this journey, we are not searching for fantasy or speculation. Instead, we are exploring the limits of what history can confidently explain. These lost civilizations remind us that the human story is incomplete, shaped as much by what is missing as by what is known. And with that understanding, we step into the past where mystery still lingers, waiting to be uncovered. Across the remains of vanished civilizations, one detail appears again and again, evidence of knowledge that seems far ahead of its time. Massive stone structures fitted with remarkable precision, cities planned according to geometric principles, and monuments aligned with celestial events all suggest that these societies understood far more than simple survival. Their achievements point to careful observation, long-term planning, and shared technical traditions passed down through generations. In many ancient sites, architecture was not built at random. Temples, pyramids, and ceremonial centers were often positioned to mark solstices, equinoxes, or the movement of stars across the sky. These alignments required years of observation and a deep familiarity with natural cycles. Such precision implies organized systems of learning and specialists dedicated to studying the heavens, even without written instruments or modern tools. Engineering skill is equally evident. Some civilizations moved enormous stones across long distances, shaping and placing them with accuracy that still impresses modern builders. Roads were carved through mountains, drainage systems controlled water flow, and urban layouts balanced practicality with symbolic meaning. These were not accidental developments, but the result of accumulated knowledge and coordinated labor on a large scale. What makes these discoveries especially striking is how widespread they are. Similar architectural concepts appear in regions separated by oceans and centuries, raising questions about parallel innovation and shared human ingenuity. These societies may not have had machines as we know them, but they clearly mastered materials, mathematics, and environmental adaptation. The presence of such advanced knowledge challenges the idea that early civilizations were technologically limited. Instead, it suggests that human understanding has risen, fallen, and risen again, leaving behind traces that still challenge how we define progress and sophistication in the ancient world. As archaeologists uncover more remains of lost civilizations, a growing tension has emerged between physical evidence and long-accepted historical timelines. In several regions, complex settlements appear far earlier than expected, showing signs of social organization, construction skills, and cultural depth that do not easily fit into conventional models of human development. These discoveries quietly question how linear and orderly our understanding of history truly is. Some ancient sites reveal cities with planned layouts, defensive structures, and ceremonial centers that seem to emerge almost fully formed. There is little evidence of a long experimental phase leading up to them. Instead, these societies appear suddenly in the archaeological record, already capable of large-scale coordination. This raises difficult questions about what came before and whether earlier stages of development simply remain undiscovered or were erased by time. Dating methods. provide another layer of complexity. In certain locations, carbon analysis and stratigraphy suggest ages that push civilization back further than once believed. Tools, artwork, and architectural foundations indicate that humans were organizing themselves into stable communities earlier than traditional timelines allow. Each new excavation has the potential to shift historical boundaries that once seemed fixed. What complicates matters further is the uneven nature of preservation. Many ancient sites were built with organic materials that do not survive long periods. Floods, earthquakes, erosion, and later human activity have erased countless traces. As a result, the surviving evidence may represent only fragments of a much broader and older human story. Rather than offering clear answers, archaeology often presents puzzles. The more we uncover, the more apparent it becomes that history is not a complete record, but a reconstruction based on what remains. These challenging timelines remind us that human civilization may have begun earlier, developed faster, and evolved more unevenly than our current narratives suggest. One of the greatest obstacles to understanding lost civilizations is the absence of clear written records. In many cases, these societies either left no writing behind or use systems that remain undeciphered. Without direct voices from the past, historians are forced to rely on material remains alone, which can only tell part of the story. Some civilizations clearly possessed systems of symbols, markings, or inscriptions, yet their meanings have been lost. Tablets, carvings, and glyphs appear repeatedly at ancient sites, suggesting structured communication. However, without a known reference point such as a bilingual text or surviving tradition, these symbols remain silent. They hint at laws, beliefs, and histories that once guided daily life but are now beyond our reach. In other cases, writing may never have been permanent. Knowledge could have been passed orally through storytelling, ritual, and apprenticeship. Oral systems can preserve complex information for generations, but they are fragile. When a culture collapses or is absorbed by another, those spoken traditions can disappear within a few lifetimes, leaving no trace for later scholars to study. Time itself is another enemy of records. Materials like wood, cloth, and bark decay easily, especially in harsh climates. Floods, fires, and environmental shifts may have destroyed libraries and archives long before they could be rediscovered. What survives today may represent only a fraction of what once existed. This silence creates space for uncertainty. Without written explanations, motivations behind migrations, social structures, or sudden changes remain unclear. The lack of records does not suggest a lack of intelligence or complexity, but rather reminds us how dependent history is on survival and chance. These missing voices leave history unfinished, shaped by gaps as much as by evidence. Natural environments have always shaped human societies, and for many lost civilizations, environmental change may have played a decisive role in their disappearance. Shifts in climate, water availability, and land stability can quietly undermine even the most organized cultures, leaving behind ruins that suggest sudden abandonment rather than gradual decline. Archaeological evidence shows that some ancient cities were built in regions that later became dry, flooded, or unstable. Changes in rainfall patterns could turn fertile farmland into barren ground within a few generations. Rivers that once sustained trade and agriculture may have shifted course, cutting off lifelines that entire populations depended on. Without modern forecasting or large-scale infrastructure, adapting to such changes would have been extremely difficult. Environmental stress often creates chain reactions. Food shortages can weaken social structures, increase internal tension, and force migration. As populations move, cities may be left empty, their buildings slowly reclaimed by nature. Over time, vegetation, sand, or water can bury entire settlements, preserving them in silence while erasing their presence from human memory. Evidence of past natural events can still be seen today. Layers of ash point to volcanic activity, while sediment deposits reveal ancient floods or rising seas. These markers suggest that environmental disruption was not always gradual. Sudden events may have forced people to leave quickly, carrying only what they could transport and leaving behind cities that appear frozen in time. The role of nature in the rise and fall of civilizations reminds us that human achievement is deeply tied to environmental balance. Even advanced societies are vulnerable when that balance shifts. These lost civilizations may not have failed due to weakness, but because the world around them changed faster than they could adapt. While environmental pressures can weaken a civilization, human conflict often accelerates its decline. Evidence from many lost societies suggests that warfare, invasion, or internal unrest may have played a critical role in their disappearance. Broken fortifications, damaged structures, and shifts in settlement patterns point to periods of instability that disrupted everyday life. In some regions, signs of repeated rebuilding indicate long-term conflict rather than a single catastrophic event. Cities may have been attacked, partially abandoned, and later reoccupied, each cycle leaving fewer resources and less cohesion than before. Over time, the ability to recover would have diminished, eventually leading to complete collapse or dispersal. Internal strain can be just as damaging as external threats. Growing populations place pressure on food supplies, leadership systems, and social trust. When resources become scarce, divisions can deepen between social groups. These tensions may weaken cooperation, making it harder to respond to crises or maintain complex infrastructure. Archaeological layers sometimes reveal abrupt changes in material culture. Tools, pottery styles, and building methods may shift suddenly, suggesting the arrival of new groups or the breakdown of established traditions. Such changes hint at power struggles or forced transitions rather than peaceful evolution. Conflict does not always leave clear records. Victors may erase evidence of those they replaced, while survivors may abandon their cities entirely. What remains are fragments, walls built for defense, weapons left behind, and settlements that end suddenly in the archaeological record. These signs of conflict remind us that civilizations are not only shaped by nature, but by human choices and tensions. The disappearance of a society may reflect a long period of strain where resilience was gradually worn down until recovery was no longer possible. Some lost civilizations are especially puzzling because they appear to disappear almost completely. Unlike societies that leave behind long periods of decline or clear transitions, these cultures seem to end abruptly with little evidence of what followed. Entire cities were left empty, daily activities stopped, and no clear successors carried their traditions forward. Archaeologists sometimes find settlements where tools, household items, and unfinished work remain in place, suggesting that people did not leave slowly or with careful planning. Yet there are no clear signs of destruction or disaster. The absence of both recovery and rebuilding makes these sites difficult to interpret, as if the population simply moved on or dissolved into the surrounding landscape. In some cases, people may have dispersed into smaller groups, abandoning large urban centers in favor of rural or mobile lifestyles. Over time, this shift would leave fewer lasting structures, causing their cultural identity to fade quickly. Without monuments or written records, later generations may have had no awareness of the civilization that came before them. Natural processes also play a role in erasing evidence. Vegetation, sand, and water can cover entire regions within centuries, making once thriving settlements invisible from the surface. Only modern surveying techniques reveal how extensive these forgotten societies once were. The sudden disappearance of these civilizations challenges the idea that cultural change is always gradual or well documented. Their near total absence from historical memory reminds us how easily human presence can be erased. What feels permanent in one era may leave almost no trace in another, turning entire civilizations into brief moments in the long span of history. Among the most enduring legacies of lost civilizations are structures that continue to puzzle modern researchers. Massive stone blocks cut with precision, walls aligned over vast distances, and buildings designed to endure earthquakes suggest a level of technical understanding that is difficult to explain using simple tools alone. These constructions were not only functional but often symbolic, reflecting careful planning and shared knowledge. In many ancient sites, stones weighing several tons were transported across challenging terrain without the use of wheels, metal machinery, or modern lifting equipment. The accuracy with which these stones were shaped and fitted leaves little room for error, indicating advanced methods of measurement and coordination. Even today, replicating some of these techniques would require complex planning and significant resources. Equally striking is the longevity of these structures. Many have survived for thousands of years, outlasting later buildings constructed with more familiar technology. Their durability suggests an understanding of materials, stress, and environmental forces that was refined through experience rather than written theory. What adds to the mystery is the lack of transitional evidence. In some regions, there are few remains showing how construction methods evolved over time. Instead, monumental architecture appears suddenly, fully developed, and then disappears along with the civilization that created it. This gap makes it difficult to trace how such skills were learned, shared, or lost. These structures do not imply unknown technology, but they do challenge assumptions about ancient capabilities. They remind us that knowledge can be practical, experimental, and highly effective without leaving behind detailed explanations. The buildings that remain stand as quiet challenges to modern confidence, suggesting that past civilizations may have mastered techniques that were later forgotten rather than surpassed. When written records are absent, myths and legends often become the only echoes of lost civilizations. Stories passed down through generations may not describe events exactly as they occurred, but they can preserve emotional truths and collective memories. Floods, great cities, wise builders, and sudden endings appear in traditions across different cultures, hinting at real experiences transformed by time. Many ancient legends speak of advanced societies that existed before a great change in the world. These narratives often describe knowledge, order, and harmony followed by disruption or loss. While such stories are shaped by imagination and symbolism, their persistence suggests that they are rooted in shared human experiences rather than pure invention. Oral traditions served as a way to preserve history in societies without writing. Elders, storytellers, and ritual leaders maintained these narratives, embedding lessons and warnings within them. Over time, details would shift, but the core themes remained. When a civilization collapsed or merged with another, these stories could survive even as physical evidence faded. Comparing myths from distant regions reveals striking similarities. Accounts of destroyed cities, forgotten builders, or migrations caused by natural forces appear again and again. These patterns raise the possibility that myths preserve fragmented memories of real events experienced by early societies. While legends cannot replace archaeological evidence, they offer valuable context. They reflect how people understood their past and responded to loss and change. In this way, myths act as bridges between history and memory, reminding us that even when facts disappear, stories continue to carry traces of civilizations long gone. Each new archaeological discovery has the potential to reshape how we understand the past. Advances in technology have allowed researchers to detect buried cities, map landscapes hidden beneath forests or deserts, and analyze materials with greater precision than ever before. As a result, civilizations once thought isolated or simple are now revealed as complex and interconnected. Remote sensing, satellite imagery, and ground-penetrating methods have uncovered vast networks of roads, settlements, and agricultural systems invisible from the surface. These findings suggest that some lost civilizations were far larger and more organized than earlier. Studies indicated what appeared to be small or scattered communities may have been parts of expansive regional systems. New evidence often forces scholars to reconsider long-held assumptions. Timelines are adjusted, migration patterns are re-examined, and cultural influence is reassessed. In some cases, discoveries challenge the idea that progress followed a single path. Instead, they reveal multiple centers of innovation developing independently in different parts of the world. These shifts do not overturn history overnight. Academic understanding evolves slowly as evidence is tested, debated, and confirmed. Yet with each discovery, the picture becomes more complex. History grows less like a straight line and more like a web of overlapping stories. The continued discovery of lost civilizations reminds us that historical knowledge is provisional. What we believe today is shaped by what has been found so far. As technology improves and new sites are uncovered, the past continues to expand, challenging certainty and inviting a deeper appreciation of humanity's long and intricate journey. One of the most enduring questions surrounding lost civilizations is how they truly ended. Some evidence suggests long periods of gradual decline, marked by shrinking populations, reduced construction, and simpler material culture. Other sites, however, seem to point toward abrupt abandonment, where daily life stopped within a very short span of time. Gradual decline often leaves subtle traces. Buildings fall into disrepair, artistic detail becomes less elaborate, and trade networks weaken. These signs suggest society struggling to maintain complexity as resources, leadership, or stability eroded over generations. In such cases, collapse was not a single event, but a slow process of adaptation that eventually led to transformation or dispersal. Sudden disappearance presents a different puzzle. In some settlements, there is little evidence of transition. Homes were left intact, tools remained where they were last used, and there are no clear signs of prolonged hardship. These conditions imply rapid change, possibly triggered by environmental shocks, social upheaval, or forced migration. The challenge lies in interpreting incomplete evidence. A site that appears to end abruptly may simply reflect a gap in preservation. Conversely, signs of decline could represent only one region, while others continued elsewhere. Without complete records, both interpretations remain possible. These debates highlight the limits of archaeological certainty. The end of a civilization may not fit neatly into a single explanation. Instead, it may involve overlapping processes unfolding at different speeds. Understanding these endings requires patience, openness, and acceptance that some aspects of the past may never be fully resolved. The study of lost civilizations is not only about uncovering ruins or solving ancient puzzles. It is also a reflection on the nature of human history itself. These vanished societies remind us that progress is not guaranteed and that complexity can rise and fall repeatedly across time. What survives into the present is shaped by chance as much as achievement. Many of these civilizations were once stable, innovative, and deeply connected to their environments. Their disappearance does not mean failure, but transformation. People adapted, moved, and merged into new cultures, carrying fragments of knowledge forward in ways that are difficult to trace. History, as we know it, is built from these fragments. The gaps left behind challenge modern confidence. They show that written records, monuments, and systems can all be lost. Entire ways of life can fade with little warning, leaving future generations to piece together meaning from scattered remains. This fragility makes the past feel closer and more human. Lost civilizations also encourage humility. They remind us that our understanding is incomplete and always evolving. New evidence can change what we think we know, and unanswered questions are not weaknesses in history, but invitations to explore further. In the end, these civilizations matter not because they are mysterious, but because they reveal how interconnected and vulnerable human societies have always been. Their stories linger in stone, soil, and memory, urging us to look at the past not as a finished record, but as an ongoing conversation with time itself. As we step back from everything we have explored, one truth becomes clear: lost civilizations are not distant curiosities, but mirrors reflecting the fragile nature of human existence. Their cities, knowledge, and traditions once felt permanent to the people who lived there, just as our world feels stable to us today. Yet time, environment, and human choices quietly reshape their paths, leaving behind only fragments for us to interpret. These stories remind us that history is not a straight line of constant progress. It is a cycle of growth, adaptation, loss, and renewal. What has vanished is just as important as what remains, because absence forces us to question, to study more carefully, and to listen to the silence between the ruins. Every unanswered question carries a lesson about resilience, humility, and the limits of certainty. Thank you for joining this journey into the shadows of the past. If you found these stories meaningful, take a moment to reflect on what they reveal about our shared human story. And if you would like to continue exploring the mysteries hidden within history, do not forget to follow along. Until next time, stay curious and see you in the next story.